Hello, my name is Maciej Misztal. I am director of Lublin Film Festival, and I'm talking with Santiago Becker, director of What to Do with All Those Things. Hello.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for doing this for the festival and for the selection, and I'm really excited about this. Thank you.
I'm so happy to talk with you because I like your movie a lot, and I have a lot of questions. So maybe we will start. Your movie is about David, whose father died, and he has to come back to his homeland and help his family with all those things.
Yeah,
But it is not a fiction story, not only a fiction story, yes?
yeah. This actually happened to me when my father passed away, and everything was so crazy because I was living in Mexico at the time, and one morning I get this phone call that's saying like, "Hi, your father passed away last night, and nobody knows where he is." So there, the story kicked in with a really kind of mystery because I didn't know who was actually calling me, so everything was super weird. So the next thing I know, I'm getting on a plane the next day to Buenos Aires. Haven't been there for at least 5 years, and I just had to deal with all those things that happened, which were far more than I can actually shot on the short film because budget reasons, you know. But the truth is that more things happen than the actually what happens to David on the movie. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spoil spoil the things that happens in the movie, but everything was surreal. Like for me, it was a surreal experience, and to being able to make a movie about it and using my mother, who actually played as herself, and finding someone to cast for myself and to cast for my grandmother, and kind of like reliving everything through the movie. It was very therapeutic and super fun at the same time, and it kind of gave me some kind of closure for the situation because one of the main things about the character is that he's so overwhelmed by the situation that he doesn't know how he's supposed to be feeling about it. And that's also another thing that I want to explore with the movie. Like, can you not cry about your father passing away? Is it okay? Like, I think I've talked with some other people, and they agree that sometimes everything is so weird and overwhelming to see that the person who is your father is not here anymore, and you know you feel like kind of numb. Yeah, it's so overwhelming, and you don't know how you're supposed to feel, and that kind of gets you conflict on your head. Like, I really loved him, and what was my really relationship? Why I'm not crying? Am I a bad person for not crying for my father? All the kind of things go through your mind, plus doing all the actual thing you have to do, like signing certificates, going to life insurance situations, sell all the furniture and all those things you have to do after someone passed away, which are a lot. And I realized that with this experience. And all of those things mixed together was what I tried to portray in the main character's mind through the movie.
What is interesting, what you have said that there was a lot of fun with doing this movie. So it's the film is very serious, but your movie is not so serious. I would say maybe it's not a comedy, but there is a huge distance to this story,
Right.
and it was your idea or it just happened.
Well, I really didn't want it to be like a sad movie because my father was a very humorous person, and I consider myself a very humorous person. I love comedy; it's my favorite genre on anything, books, movies, series, whatever you name it. Comedy is my best. I love to laugh, and I always thought that I'm not really the person who can actually shoot a big drama thing with that try to connect with the audience through sorrow or something like that. But I wanted to have like a positive note on it, you know, like trying to have all the settings and all the backgrounds and the colors and everything, trying to be more like in a theatrical kind of fun way, and try to put this kind of dark comedy, you know, which is what I really like in movies. Yeah, don't take too serious, you know, the whole setup of the movie, you know, like try to play with the characters, make them more unique. And yeah, I mean, I thought this is the style I like, and I want to also give my input on the artistic kind of part of the movie, you know, not just to be like, yeah, like a sad story, because at the end, you know, you can laugh about anything. And for me, the whole thing, of course, was sad because I had to look after my grandmother and do all these kinds of things about him passing away. But at the same time, it was very like surreal, you know, like this is all happening, and I wanted to that kind of surrealism. I wanted to be portrayed in the movie as well, you know, not just a regular, yeah, like dramatic story, but with a lot of condiments that will make it fun to watch and also entertaining and also, you know, appealing to the audience.
And what about your mother? Because you said that, and we know that she plays herself in your movie, and for them it was also a good idea to have this distance and humor, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, she's an actress, so she was super on board with the project, and having her son directing her was something that she was looking forward. And also, they were my mother and my father separated when I was a little boy, so they weren't like super attached, really. I mean, the early relationship they had, it was through me. So she didn't lose her husband, you know what I mean? She lost the father of her son, but it wasn't like she she's married and she has another family. So this is a lot of water under the bridge. It was more fun of doing this project about the family, which I also think that working with your family is very weird but very fun at the same time, because this is your world. You know, it's the world you were born, and the world you grew up with your family and your family members. And being able to work with that kind of subject, it was very, I don't find the word, but it's like it's fun. It's working with the things you know and the things you really are attached to it. So working with my mother was, I saw her like act in so many things, and I wish I can give her a role which wasn't her, because she's good at acting, but you know, for this project that was what is needed. So it was great working with her, and for her was also a very fun moment and another way to approach all the situation. So yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, there's no sad notes on that.
So we can say that it is some kind of family therapy, film family therapy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for all the scenes where they were shot on the grandmother's house, we actually took everything from my actually grandmother's home. We cleaned out her apartment and we set up everything in another location. And you know, it's like we had this. I had this picture of my father and my grandmother like from a few years ago, and we actually photoshopped the main character's father's face onto that picture and the actress face on that picture, and it was super fun to being able to play with real things and, you know, just play it out for the movie. And like having everyone from my family involved in some sort of way was amazing. You know, even my uncle helped me with directing actors, and my grandmother, she gave us everything she had to set up the locations. My mother was there, my father was there in spirit, of course, and all my friends help in logistics. Well, of course, I work in the industry in Argentina, so I have friends who help me with directing, for photography, for art. for costume, for makeup. So it was like gathering everyone I know and make this project. So it wasn't just family, so it was also extended family, like like friends and acquaintances. So yeah, I mean, it was the best time of my life.
Very interesting, really. And about the script, the situation we can see in your movie are all from reality, or there is some fiction in them?
There is some fiction, but it all has to do with the with some sort of dialogues and like for example, the things that happened. I traveled to Buenos Aires and I had to deal with my father's death, but then I was able to play with some situations that happened, but try to put some humor on them. You know, you have this story where you have A, B, and C, and you try to spice it up with some, you know, like recreate some situations, but add in something that you wish happened. So that's pretty much what I did. Is like, okay, I have this Canva, and I can, you know, add some red here and some blue over there, and some yellow, and you know, just make it interesting because I wanted to make something that people could enjoy and that was the main goal. So yeah, I tried to spice it up with some dialogue and some extra scenes and making the policeman more out of the actually situation that was pretty standard, but I tried to make it, you know, more fun. And yeah, everything has some sort of tuning, you know.
Yeah, I love the character of this policeman. He's so so positive in this whole situation. So I was curious, but you said that I was curious. Is based on some real character, but now we know that he is, but not so positive. I would say. But he also
Yeah, I
drank
mean, yeah, I mean,
mate.
yeah. I mean, I'm drinking mate right now. Because it I think those details is like what gives us the scene and some kind of, you know, things that you can rewatch and see, oh, he's drinking mate and he's suffering, you know, the small details to add to the story basically. And that moment with the police guy, I remember when I get out of the plane, the first thing I did was go to see this policeman after I got down from the plane from Mexico, and it was like maybe 6 a.m. in the morning, and it was like the first morning shift, and everyone was super asleep. All the policemen were like with, you know, morning faces, and this guy that was doing everything for me, he wasn't that humorous, but he was like, you know, like these characters in movies where he's the maybe the son of the chief police, but he's not very good at his job, so they gave him the administrative job that nobody wants to do, and he's there, you know, like that was the character, you know. He was the dumb chief police son, you know. And for me to find the right character, Leo, he was amazing. I wish I can have more time to work with Leo because he could give so much more to that character, but you know, sometimes things are the way it is, and you have to adapt. But you know, he was super fun to work with.
And this woman selling plates, because in English translation, we when she's telling this cheesy long poem, in English we see also only this caption. Yes, so
Yeah,
it is any particular well-known poem in Argentina, or
the poem is like something I made up, so it's super something stupid that I came up with, and I thought that translating that to English will be nonsense because I thought it will be funnier for the movie to play with the subtitles instead of, you know, actually translating the poem. You know, like some kind of movies, like Woody Allen movies, where they play with the translation and it's different from what they're saying, and like the joke completes itself with that. You know, you include the captions in the movie, and the captions are blinking. You know, it's like I try to also give it that detail, so you see that this is not important. You know, like this is some just stupid poem. Yeah, I thought that it would be funnier to incorporate that caption than instead of translating the poem. And like I said before, my main goal was to make it funny, so I thought that would be funnier. Yeah, that's pretty much why I didn't translate the poem for fun purpose.
I think it's our first short therapeutic comedy in our film festival. Yeah. I'm very impressed that you made a lot of work to make it in other way, in your way of thinking
Yeah.
and feeling a cinema. So thank you for this interview. I hope you all the best.
Thank you so much for this, and looking forward to the festival.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, see you. Bye bye.